Where do you want us? Just right up here, sir. Okay. We'll be fine. Hang on. Thank you, sir. You guys might as well get in close. Sounds good. We good to go? Anybody have any technical difficulties? All right. You got to say you need a minute. You good to go? Again, thank you so much for being here again. We want to basically bring everybody up to speed with where we are in the investigation regarding Phillip Michael Stroupe. And I've got certainly folks who have been very instrumental and helpful from the very beginning in bringing this case to the place where it is right now. Whereas everybody knows here, we have finally recovered the body of Mr. Tommy Bryson. To my far left over here, you have District Attorney Greg Newman, 29th Judicial District, Sheriff Van Duncan with Buncombe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Dave Mahoney, Transylvania Sheriff's Office, Rick Livingston, Mills River Fire and Rescue, and to my right here, Jimmy Brissy, Emergency Management Services. These two fellows on my right and left have been tremendously instrumental in helping us with the whole rescue, management of the rescue or recovery effort. We certainly couldn't have done that without them. Again, the two sheriffs represented here represent many, many sheriffs across western North Carolina who made resources available and who were personally available at a phone call, even beating me to the phone call oftentimes to volunteer resources. As everybody is aware, Mr. Bryson was found deceased in an area in Buncombe County, probably about 20 minutes drive time from where we believe he was actually abducted in the South Mills River area on South Mills River Road. We certainly have every reason to believe, based on investigation that's taken up to this point, certainly circumstances as well, that the sole person responsible for the death of Mr. Bryson is going to be Mr. Stroupe. I will let the district attorney tell you what warrants we have, what charges have been taking place. But I would be remiss also if I didn't mention, and I think you guys have these names in your handouts, the ATF agents, the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation agents, U.S. Marshals agents also who assisted all across western North Carolina, even up into eastern Tennessee, as we were looking to try and find the body of Mr. Bryson. It's been a long time. Our deputies, and certainly these deputies of these offices, have worked around the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm just very pleased to say that Mr. Stroupe has been charged with first-degree murder, and the district attorney has met with the family recently. He and I did within the last hour, I would say, and they certainly want everybody to know that they appreciate all the efforts, the vast amount of effort that went into trying to bring their father back, and we're very gratified to hear and to meet with the district attorney and to hear his plans moving forward. Greg, would you like to talk to those charges, please?
Absolutely, thank you. First, let me just say I want to thank a couple of my colleagues. Ted Bell is the district attorney for McDowell and Rutherford County, and I spoke to him earlier today, but I want to thank him publicly for addressing the bond issue on Michael Stroupe at the end of last week. Our initial information was that the bond coming from a magistrate there was at $100,000, which really was dangerously too low. And Ted was able to have that matter calendared into court last Friday afternoon, where Judge Laura Powell, who's a district court judge, raised that level to $2 million. Now, what that did was it allowed us here, our rescue and search folks, the freedom not to have to worry about that end of things, knowing that a $2 million bond was likely out of his reach to make, so that Stroupe would remain in custody. That was one less worry that we had, so that the search for Mr. Bryson could continue. And I do appreciate Ted taking the initiative to address that issue last week, and I told him so. Also, I want to thank Todd Williams, the district attorney in Buncombe County. He and I spoke earlier today, and that is pertinent for what I'm about to tell you. In North Carolina, of course, we have the law that allows us to retain jurisdiction when a crime begins here, as it did in this case in Mills River, and continued on into other counties. It's what's called a continuing course of criminal conduct, which allows us to charge all or some of the felony charges here in this county. And District Attorney Williams and I discussed the murder charge that is being addressed this afternoon here in Hendersonville in District Court on Mr. Stroupe. And it has been agreed that we will file those charges here. In a few moments, probably 30 to 40 minutes, Stroupe will be appearing in our district court here for his initial appearance. We are asking that no bond be established, and a probable cause hearing date will be scheduled. We've asked that be scheduled for August 21st. That is 3 weeks from today. And we are asking that a grand jury reconvene on that date, so that we can go ahead and seek indictments and have this case moved to Superior Court on that date. The Clerk of Court, Kim Gasperson Justice, has agreed to do that. The grand jury normally meets every other month, so this is not something that is normally scheduled, but we will ask them to reconvene to take up this case and some of the collateral cases only. So that is in the works, and we hope to accomplish that by the 21st of August. That's important because it is my intention, in this case, given the facts that we have, to seek the death penalty in this case. I think the facts make it appropriate, and I am, of course, restrained by law from discussing detailed facts about the case. My obligation is not just to prosecute, but my obligation as district attorney also goes to those accused, and I have to make sure that their rights are protected as well. So without getting into the details of the facts, I have reviewed the facts and have been kept apprised of the investigation as it has unfolded in the last several days. And I'm very comfortable in telling you that the death penalty would be an appropriate punishment upon conviction of a murder case in this matter. So that is our intention. And we have discussed this with the Bryson family members that I was able to meet with this afternoon. So what that means is that Mr. Stroupe will be appointed 2 lawyers. The law affords him 2 lawyers. And as things unfold through the court process, we'll be able to let everyone know what kind of timetable we're looking at to resolve the matter, which I anticipate will be a jury trial at some point in our future. So that's our plan, and we are fortunate, and I'm fortunate, to have the support of all these sheriffs and these rescue folks here who have worked very hard to put this case together. A lot of us forget that this began in Transylvania County, and this time last week there were a lot of people complaining about the Pisgah National Forest being closed. Well, in retrospect, that was a fantastic idea, because I don't think a lot of people appreciated how dangerous the Stroupe fellow really is. And so, Sheriff Mahoney, I appreciate the courage that it took to do that, because I know there were some business folks that suffered a little bit, but the safety was the paramount interest there, and we appreciate you doing that, by the way. So thank you there. But at any rate, we will have other charges that we will also be prosecuting that come from Transylvania County, that began when the Sheriff's Department there began their pursuit of this fellow, Stroupe, and as well as our charges here. And then Buncombe County will be prosecuting at least 3 individuals on the charges of harboring Stroupe. And those folks are currently in custody, and Sheriff Duncan can elaborate more on those folks. But so there are a lot of moving parts to this case, as there normally is in every case. But there are a lot of moving parts that we're dealing with here. But it's all coming together, and it will come together. And we believe that proper accountability will be achieved when all is said and done. Thank you much.
Thank you. Man, would you like to speak?
You know, we can answer that by question, but just wanted to let everybody know that the 3 individuals that we had originally charged for harboring a fugitive, those charges have been upgraded to accessory after the fact, and all those folks have been served, arrested, and are still in custody under a $200,000 secured bond for each individual. So if there's more questions around that, we'll answer what we can.
I'm going to go ahead and wrap up in just a second and let you guys ask questions. I do want to point out something really unique about this case, I think for all of us in law enforcement, is that this went through so many territories and jurisdictions. It really was a very cumbersome case as it unfolded. That affected certainly the searches, the search areas, and where we had to put our priorities. But there was one thing that nobody ever let down in their commitment for, and that was the attempt to locate and to find Mr. Bryson and to hopefully return him home safely. Again, unfortunately, it didn't go like we wanted it to, but North Carolina, Western North Carolina can especially be proud of the quality of law enforcement and the emergency rescue services that they have, not to mention those people being supplemented by literally hundreds of citizens from this community and other communities who were going out about doing their best to bring a hopefully good resolution to this whole event. So again, we're all open for questions, anything. Obviously we can't get into details, as the district attorney said, that have to do with the case, that could compromise the case, or information known only to those involved closely into the case. Yes, sir.
So Phillip Stroupe's father has been, his charge is accessory after the fact as well. Right.
Yes, sir.
So his charge hasn't been upgraded, but the 3 others, their charges were. Right. I know that 2 of the 3 people who were arrested for harboring initially said that they were forced by Phillip Stroupe to take part in this. Have you guys considered that at all before upgrading the charges on them?
Again, no charges were taken without a significant amount of evidence to support those charges. So I would defer to the facts of the investigation that will come out later on. But they were not innocent in our opinion at all.
Okay, Sheriff, can you tell us specifically how you located Mr. Bryson's body?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that he was located by an individual who works for the Fire and Rescue in Skyland, who actually is a relative of Mr. Bryson, who, going on information that had been disseminated through the emergency search channels, was just riding around trying to make sense out of some information he'd been given, and in all honesty just happened to be in the right spot at the right time. I won't go into detail as to what led him specifically to the location. He believes it was divine intervention. I certainly do too, because that area was so out of order for what we were specifically looking for based on information that we had gathered in talking with the suspect, or information that I think he had released probably to throw us off on the wrong trail. We spent a lot of time looking around rivers and ditches. While there was a river in the location, it certainly just following that river, which had been done several times, would not have led us to the body. So we're just very thankful that was able to take place.
You're talking about being thrown off, being led to the wrong trail. And may I ask, during the course of the investigation since Mr. Stroupe's arrest, how cooperative, if at all, has he been?
Yeah, Mr. Stroupe has not at any point in time been cooperative in the least, which has really added to the difficulty of all the folks involved trying to locate him. Basically, once he was taken into custody, we knew we had a very dangerous individual off the streets, but we really needed to finish up the mission, and that was to locate Mr. Bryson and get him back to his family. And I can tell you without reservation that he provided no help or no inclination to help whatsoever.
Can you talk about how long Mr. Bryson had been in the Glen Bridge Road area, and if any bullets were fired from
Again, I can't go into details of the information, but I can tell you we have every reason to believe that if there were, he was about 20 minutes from the site of the abduction, so we really believe that within about 20 to 30 minutes of Mr. Bryson's meeting up with Mr. Stroupe, Mr. Bryson was deceased. He was no longer with us.
Autopsy results on Bryson, have they been released as of yet?
Excuse me, sir?
Autopsy results on Mr. Bryson?
We're getting information in, but again, because of the nature of that information and its importance to a trial, we're certainly not going to get into any of those things right now.
Anything preliminary?
Excuse me?
Anything preliminary?
Nothing that we want to release right now at this time. Again, folks, remember, it's not about being evasive. It's just about protecting our case and making sure that the district attorney has everything at his disposal to do a good job for us.
Sheriff, how was Stroupe Sr. involved?
One at a time, folks, please.
How was Stroupe Sr. involved?
We believe that he significantly aided, certainly had the opportunity to convince his son to do the right thing. We believe that he was just provided shelter and assistance to his son after the fact.
After the kidnapping, or after from the very beginning? At what stage in the process?
We believe he knew that his son was being sought by law enforcement, and beyond that I can't get into a whole lot, but again, we do believe that he provided substantial assistance to his son and would continue to do so now if he were able.
We talked to him on Monday, so a week ago today. Was it after that point? Because he was saying that he wanted his son to turn himself in, saying that he was a good guy. Was it after that point, or was it before that point?
I would just say talk's cheap, sir.
Was there a weapon? We're hearing that there was a handgun found with Stroupe when he was picked up.
That is correct.
38 caliber.
I can't go into any details, sir.
Do you have any more of a detailed timeline when he took that Tennessee trip, why he came back from Tennessee?
We've got a lot of investigation still going on, and certainly while the search part is over and done, thankfully, there's a lot of investigation still taking place even while we stand here in this press conference. There are agents and detectives out still in the areas looking for more information to solidify what happened after his initial appearance up in the Tennessee area.
I've also heard that he spray painted part of the truck, so that I guess maybe to be in a disguise. Can you talk about that?
We do know that efforts were made to most likely to disguise the vehicle, but I'm not going to go into detail at this time.
How did you know that he was in the Gatlinburg and Sevierville areas? Was he spotted on surveillance?
Again, incredible. I can't say enough for the investigators who were out here in the field rounding up leads. Again, we go back, we talk to people who know people. We're running hunches. We're trying to run down, old acquaintances. We used just various investigative techniques, anything that we could take a poke at, we did, and at times it turned up information which led to the development of other information. And like I said, when it's all said and done, I'm sure when the DA is able to present his case in court, it'll all come together for everybody. But we believe we have a very, very solid case.
Sheriff, until the trial and that evidence comes out during testimony, can you at least give us some answer to the very basic question, why do you think Mr. Bryson was killed in all of this?
It is such a senseless act. I will tell you that the only benefit that I believe that Mr. Stroupe saw in his contact with Mr. Bryson was a vehicle. Mr. Bryson had a vehicle. Mr. Stroupe needed it. As to why he did what he did, why it couldn't have ended more peacefully, that's really only in the mind of the suspect.
Do you have any other thoughts on motivation for all these crimes?
I really don't. I mean, we have a individual who has demonstrated over his lifetime that he really has a propensity to be a menace to society. I really don't know what makes him tick or what makes him think why he does what he does. Of course, this whole event started in Transylvania County, ended up in a multi-day search in the woods between Transylvania, Pisgah Forest, and down into the Mills River area. And basically we're here today because of basically bad decisions and poor choices this individual made, really without regard to the safety or what's right for anybody else. So,
speaking of, for lack of a better phrase, bad decisions and poor choices, there was some talk in the law enforcement community about whether he should have been released early or whether he should have been released if there was an outstanding warrant on him in Buncombe County. Mm-hmm. Any response about that?
Really, our job in law enforcement is, we evaluate the facts, we make the arrests, we take people in. Judicial officials, judges, and magistrates have certain guidelines and certain discretions they're allowed to operate under. And I don't have all the facts, but certainly I don't have all the facts, but I don't think somebody like that needs to be out on the street. Certainly, he is a menace to society.
Do you think that should be something the legislature should take up about whether someone who had an active warrant should have been released?
I think that's a good thing about really our country and our the United States is if citizens feel that is a necessary something that needs to be changed. I think it's a great opportunity to write into legislators and get laws changed. A lot of times law enforcement may appear to fall short in carrying out justice, and sometimes it is because of legitimate legal restrictions we have, and that's where it's up to society to get involved and to maybe get some of those laws changed.
Sheriff, can I speak
Please.
a second for some of those charges? I just want to make sure that you don't want to take away a misnomer about him having an active warrant and being released. He was out on bond. He was able to make at least one significant cash bond in Buncombe County. So every time that he was rearrested, he had made bond and he was out on bond. So don't want you to think that he was released from anywhere and he had an active warrant. I think $236,000 was the amount he made in Buncombe County on an armed robbery.
Can you talk about the investigative efforts in the Mills River area? We've talked to some folks who said that they saw law enforcement and then a little bit later they didn't see law enforcement in that area, and what that time frame was when you thought Stroupe was there, and then we had this abduction that took place a little later.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. We were active from the from the time we started with Sheriff Mahoney in Transylvania County. Now, different aspects of the investigation took us different places. Initially, and going by most case histories, abductions like that, you usually will find the victim, if he's deceased, in a pretty small radius. We also knew by the timeline from the time we suspect the abduction took place until the time we could place the vehicle coming out of that area, there wasn't an awful lot of time. Again, based on information we heard from the suspect when he was interviewed, there's a lot of ditches, there's a lot of water and woodland there, and we decided that was probably the first place we wanted to check. We felt, actually there were three searches. There was a hasty search, and then there was a grid search, I think the next day. Is that correct, Jimmy? And we left there because we were now picking him up in another area in western North Carolina and leading towards Tennessee. At that point in time, feeling like Mills River was probably not a likely location, we were starting to assume, again, based on information or lack of information, perhaps Mr. Bryson might still be alive. So we were moving the search to other areas that would incorporate the route that we figured that the suspect may have taken. When things didn't turn out there, at the direction of Mr. Brissy and his folks, and we certainly concurred, we wanted to go back and again make a really good look in that Mills River area just to make for certain that he wasn't close by. And I don't know, Jimmy, if you've got anything to share with that or not. these folks, Chief Livingston and Mr. Brissy, did an outstanding job running search operations, keeping folks in the woods, keeping them safe, getting them out of the woods safely, rounding them up when we were threatened by severe thunderstorms, and basically directing searches that were taking place in a number of different counties and in 2 different states at the same time. A pretty remarkable accomplishment.
And just to clarify, was a passerby that thought they spotted him in the Mills River area?
Spotted.
Stroupe?
Not during that timeline that I'm aware of.
No.
No.
So I guess the question is, how did you, or what led to the Mills River area? Because I know that we got a release saying that at 8 o'clock, I think it was on a Tuesday night, that there was information or that a passerby had called.
Oh, okay. In the north, yeah. Yes, sir. We did. That was never 100% confirmed. We suspect it was correct. That was somewhere just south of the campground in North Mills River. We followed a track to where we lost it in the vicinity of close to 280 near the Ingalls on 280 between North and South Mills River Road. We had a lot of undercover, unmarked vehicles in the area, hoping that we would see him pop up and try to come out and catch a ride or make a phone call. That never happened. Going into the evening, we certainly put a lot of heavy extra patrol in the area on the roadways during that evening, and it was the first thing the next morning that we actually received a report of a possible missing person, which under the circumstances and in that area was a tremendous red flag to us right off the bat.
Sure. Just a very small point here. We've been reporting, I think based on your words, that especially before the discovery of Mr. Bryson's body, that Mr. Bryson was believed to have been kidnapped. At this point, is there any question that he was kidnapped by Phillip Stroupe?
No, sir.
We're past believed that he was.
Yes, sir.
This is a detail. And maybe you mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I want to make sure that I'm just personally understanding. Do you believe that Mr. Bryson met his fate early on in his encounter with Phillip Stroupe? That you were holding out hope that you would find Mr. Bryson alive, obviously, but do you believe that early in the encounter he met a bad fate?
Yes, we do. We certainly do. We believe that between the time, basically we don't believe he went from the place of the abduction to the place that we found Mr. Bryson. We don't have any reason to believe there was anything else beyond that. We believe that's where he met his end. We were hoping maybe he'd been tied up and put out someplace and maybe mildly incapacitated. I think the only probably thread of hope in this whole thing for the family was the fact that they know that he didn't lay out there for days or weeks even and suffer, as tragic as it is. So there wasn't anything we could do to change that. But.
So I went to a prayer service the other night, and it seems like this community
does a tremendous job, but we can't be everywhere. We rely on citizens to look out for themselves, take care of their own family members, watch out for one another, be involved. A classic case in point really is the way this community came together in the search and rescue efforts. That's what we need to do. I'm sure the Bryson family, I've heard from them specifically, have been so buoyed up by the fact that so many community members, even people they don't know, have come around and come around them in this time. And I think that's what makes this country great. That's certainly one of the things that keeps our community in Western North Carolina so unique is we really do have that kind of mindset, that kind of culture, and it's devastating. And a community has been shaken, a county has been shaken, but we have that resolve and we have that conviction, and I think it won't put us down. It's a terrible bump in the road, and I don't use that lightly, but for who we are as a culture, it's not going to change us, or, it's just not going to change us. We're going to be stronger for it.
If you could go back, would you change anything? Would you do anything differently?
No, we'll always go back and we do what we have call a hot wash, and we go back and we look at how we deploy resources and where we need them and what we do. But you have to remember, this is a rapidly evolving, very fluid situation. We're strapped for manpower no matter what. And again, with the information we had at the time, we did everything we could have. And again, really, in all honesty, by the time we were responding to take the report of the missing person, Mr. Bryson was no longer with us. So I just don't know. I don't know what else could have been done. So.
How long do you believe he was deceased before he was discovered?
I believe, like I said, he was deceased very shortly after he was abducted, and he was just discovered last evening. So.
Do you know at which point he was abducted? Was he along his journey? We know that he was going to pick up.
We're speculating now. Like I said, I'm just giving you the facts that we know, and other things will come forth in the investigation or are coming forth as a result of the investigation.
Another question for you, Mr. Newman, if you could step to the mic as well. But as far as the death penalty in North Carolina, do you know when the last person was put to death in North Carolina?
Several years ago. It's been a while. But, and I talked to the family about issues related to the death penalty, and I said, and I told them, I said, that they will hear a variety of people say many things about the death penalty, whether it's appropriate, whether, the fact that so few people have that sentence carried out. I said, but it is the law. We have that available to us. And it is my opinion that it is appropriate in certain circumstances. We have a number of homicides that we prosecute here. Seldomly do we publicly or even in court seek that level of punishment, because what it does, it involves more people. It involves additional lawyers for the accused. It typically lengthens the process to bring a case to conclusion. But, while I know that there are a number of appeals and years of appeals that take place and so forth, achieving a just outcome sometimes is not always the easiest thing. And sometimes you just have a case where it's appropriate to, that's an appropriate outcome. So that's our position here. And I'm very comfortable with that. In fact, when I started learning about the disappearance of Mr. Bryson last Thursday, I was fearful, hopeful like most people that maybe he would be found alive. But as each hour passed, I think many of us, had a real good idea that this was not going to end well for him. And so I felt then, as I do now, that it would be an appropriate way to pursue the case, and very comfortable with that. So.
Would it be safe to say that knowing the evidence that you know that you have and the possible penalties for the crime that he's charged, that this guy will never be free again?
And we basically left here, and my comment was to the Henderson County detective that was going to see if this guy would talk. I said, yeah, here's the deal. I said, tell him he's going to get the death penalty. That's the deal. I said, he doesn't control the situation here. And no, we're not dealing for that, because I knew that these folks, we'd find Mr. Price, and I was confident of that, So, no deal.
When you were speaking with the family, did they express any reticence over such a harsh punishment?
No.
No.
No. Very supportive, as a matter of fact.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Your time, and thank you so very much.